Today I'm going to do a quick video regarding triggers. Actually trigger actions, different types of triggers you have on your guns, trigger mechanisms. There's all kinds of different ones. It always amazes me when people ask questions about triggers. You always think they're kind of self-explanatory, but some people do need to ask questions about it. That's normal, I guess. I see even questions on the gun forums all the time about what's the difference between a double action and a single action trigger. You can get really complicated about it, or you can just state the simple differences. I'll probably do somewhere in between during this. I'm going to discuss two different platforms, semi-automatics and revolvers, and go over the different types of triggers that are very common in those. We'll do that. I can't tell you which triggers will be best for you, excuse me, but I can tell you which triggers I think are best for me, and I can tell you what I consider the pros and cons. You can make your own decisions from there. But like I said, this will be all about triggers, so let's get started. First today we'll talk about semi-automatic triggers. Triggers on semi-automatic pistols that I own, and I'll go over them one by one in the different styles here. As you can see, there's a few different styles here, so it'll take a few moments to go over them. So let's get started. First I'm going to deal with some striker-fired pistols and some different types of triggers within that line. Of course, the most well-known and probably most popular, and in some ways most hated trigger, is the Glock trigger. Glock is a striker-fired single-action pistol. You cock the gun, pull the trigger. Trigger will reset when the slide cycles. Not my favorite trigger. I'm not a big fan of lighter triggers. I do love my Glocks. I have 3 or 4 of them. Well, actually 4 or 5 of them. Really like them. This is one that I actually have used as a carry gun, and I use it as a backup weapon in my vehicle. This is a Glock 33, which I have put a Lone Wolf slide on. Night sights, Lone Wolf slide, extended slide release. Did a little work on it, put a mag extension on it, just to get it to where I like the gun a lot more. This is probably my favorite Glock. I don't know, my 29 is probably my favorite, but I really like this one for carry. But back to the trigger. The single action trigger is great for some people, but I'm a little ham-fisted, used to a revolver trigger. So when I pull a single action lighter striker fired pistol like this, I tend to squeeze too much with my fingers. And you can see what that does with the gun, because I'm not putting enough effort up here, so that energy goes to my fingers down here. I mean, I need to stop that, and I can override it at the range, but I'm not certain I'd be able to override it in a stressful situation. And as you can see, like when I squeeze like that, look where the gun goes, down and left. I'd probably be hitting the ground next to a lot of the people's right foot a lot as they were coming at me. Might hit them in the right foot, but I probably wouldn't be hitting a lot of center mass in a stressful situation. So striker fired is not really that great for me. The mechanics of it are pretty simple. You know, there's a striker in the gun. When the slide cycles, it pulls the firing pin back and holds it in place. When you pull the trigger, it releases it. Once it's released, it's released. It has to be pulled back again before it can be shot again. This is basically a simple striker fire design. There's also another type of striker fire design that has a little bit different trigger, which I like a lot better. It's still not my favorite, but I like it a lot better, and that would be the Kahr. The Kahr is also a striker fire. As you can see, no hammer here. It's a striker fire gun, but the trigger is completely different. When the slide cycles on this, it pulls the firing pin back into like a, let's say, 3/4 cock position, just to make it easy to understand. And that is held in place by a sear. It's a little pin that holds it in place. When you pull the trigger, it releases that sear and releases the firing pin. But it doesn't just release the firing pin. It also has to pull the firing pin back the rest of the way. It has to go back the other 1/4 of the distance of travel. That's the design that's very unique to Kahr. Well, not unique to Kahr, but it's not used a whole lot. It makes the gun have a much more solid, longer trigger, which I like a lot. You know, I like the fact that the trigger is a little more like a light double-action revolver. You still have no double fire capability, no double strike, because the side does have to cycle again to place the firing pin in the right position for the trigger to do its job. Until then, the gun is, say, dead in the water again if the slide doesn't cycle. I like this a lot better. This is, like I say, this is my Kahr K40. I like that better. It's still not my favorite. Striker fires just aren't my favorite. I have a couple other striker fired pistols. I have an XDM, not XDM, an XD subcompact, and I just sold an SR9 that I had, which was very similar to these also. It was a striker fired pistol. I didn't like the chamber indicator on it, so I got rid of it. I didn't like the safety on it. It had a manual safety. One good thing about these striker fire guns here, you notice they all use a mechanism other than a safety to be safe. The Glock uses their patented trigger. It's got a little trigger on a trigger, so you actually have to pull that trigger before this trigger will move. That's not the greatest safety in the world, but it is a pretty heavy trigger. It's not the lightest. I forget what it's rated at, but it's up there. It's not a 3-pound trigger or anything on a competition gun. So that is the safety on this gun, the special trigger, and of course it has the internal safeties, like, you know, so it doesn't fire when dropped and things such as that. But otherwise, it's a keep your finger off the trigger, idiot, kind of a safety. The Kahr uses a similar method of keeping the gun safe. No safeties on the gun, no manual safeties, which is pretty much a requirement for me nowadays that there be no manual safeties. The safety on this is the fact that it's a long pull trigger. You're not going to accidentally just bump it and it's not going to go off. It's not light, it's fairly heavy, it's fairly long. That's a big detractor for some people. They don't like the fact that it's long and heavy. I do. I like that as a safety feature. It's like I say once again, like a double action revolver. So there's a couple of different types of striker fired pistols. The XDM, or the XD subcompact, and the SR9C. The SR9C actually has a manual thumb safety, which I despise, on a striker fired pistol. It's a good gun, and a lot of people are really liking it. When I took one to the range, it did really well, but I'm just not the biggest fan of a safety on a striker fired pistol. My XD, it also has a similar system to this, but it has one other grip safety. It has a grip safety back here, similar to like a 1911 has. So your hand has to be on the grip for the trigger to engage, and it has a similar trigger safety to the 1911 or to the Glock also. So there's some differences of safeties. You can find striker fired pistols with manual safeties on them. I'm just not a fan of them. Some people love them. Okay, now I'm going to deal with some semi-automatic guns that have hammer-fired actions. Different guns here. There's going to be a couple of different, or actually a few different types here I'll talk about. That will be the single action, double action and single action, and just double action. A couple of these guns fall into different categories there, but you'll find which ones I find the most appealing. I would actually have to say the best is probably the double action single action, which I'll cover why I feel that is. But let's start off with the single action. The single action is, of course, a trigger everyone's familiar with, the Colt 1911 here. This is a Commander's Combat Commander 1911. One of my favorite pistols. I don't carry it for self-defense, but it's still one of my favorite range guns. Like I say, the light single action trigger. When this gun is cocked and there is no safety on, that trigger is very light. You can see I didn't move that trigger much at all. So watch I mean, there's my finger on the trigger. There's the gun fired. Don't see a lot of difference there, do you? Of course, since it is a single action light like that, you couldn't be carrying that around with no safety. So of course 1911s have their traditional grip safety and thumb safety. When you pull the gun, part of the manual is to click down the safety with your thumb as you're going into position on the gun. I love this for the range. It's fun. It's good if you're really taking the time and thinking about your shots. That light double action makes this probably one of the most accurate guns in the world as far as trigger wise. I just am not the biggest fan of it because I don't train with it enough. I wouldn't use it for self-defense because I have found myself pulling the trigger before and not thumbing the safety down properly. So that wouldn't be a good thing if someone had a gun in my face and I pulled my gun and didn't thumb my safety down. And we've all seen that video on YouTube of the store clerk that did exactly that and got himself shot. So I don't want to put myself in that situation because I know I'm not well trained enough. If I was well trained enough, I would feel real safe with this gun, but I'm just not. We'll move on next to one that I really like, and that is a double action only trigger. That, as you can see, I'm representing here with my SIG P250 Compact. If you've seen my other video about the SIG, you know how much I like this gun. So don't be surprised that I like this trigger. I'm a little ham-fisted when I shoot. And yes, my finger's on the trigger because I am going to be pulling the trigger. I'm a little ham-fisted. I'm used to that energy going into my finger to pull the trigger because I'm used to double action revolvers. As you can see, that's a very long trigger. Resets clear out there. Release, reset, release, reset. That's a long trigger. It's like a double action revolver. I'm used to it. As you can see, when I'm pulling this, I'm holding the gun pretty steady. You're not seeing that you were seeing with my Glock. That's because the energy is going to this finger to pull this trigger. This trigger is heavier, it's longer, takes a little effort to pull it. That's not the case in the Glocks and some of the other single action guns. That's why I shoot this better. That energy's got someplace to go. I mean, I can overcome that at the range. I can loosen my fingers on the Glock and overcome it and shoot it properly. I'm just not sure I could do that in a stressful situation where my life was on the line. So I go to what is most natural for me. And most natural for me is to pull that long double action trigger, at least for the first shot. And so this gun is very, very, very good to me. I like the trigger. I like the way, I even like the way it feels. I like the size. I like the caliber. I like everything about it. So this gun is very popular with me. Double action triggers are very popular with me. That might be different for you. You know, I'm not saying everyone who shoots a double action or a single action trigger is going to squeeze the grip too hard and shoot low and left. That's just me. That's the way I shoot. I'm sure you're much better with them than I am. For me, double action is a lot better. It's not my favorite trigger yet, though. I'll show you what I think is my favorite trigger, and that will be the one we cover next. That would be double action and single action. That would be similar to this. This is my SIG P250. Everyone has seen this one if they've seen my other videos. This gun is double action or single action. As you can see, that hammer stayed back when the gun was cocked. If I was to pull the trigger, the hammer will release and fire the gun, but trigger resets. I have a second strike capability there. It is also double action and single action. That was single action first, double action second. Nice reset on the trigger there. You can hear it clicking. Really good trigger. One thing I like about the SIG a lot is I love their decocker they have. It's its own separate lever. It's not part of the safety. It's big. It's nice and easy to use. Decocks the gun. Gets the gun to where it's not completely decocked. You can see that little space there. But it's ready for a nice double action pull when you first need it. And of course, when the slide cycles, when the round is fired, it will leave the gun in a single action position. That means your follow-up shot can be with the lighter single action trigger. This is kind of like best of both worlds for everybody, because I get off my first shot with a nice smooth double action, and then I have a nice single action to get both hands on the grip, and you can't always count on being able to get both hands on your grip and get into a proper stance when you're firing your first shot. So I'm like having that nice double action for the first one, then get into proper position with the gun and have, you know, nice single action pulls from there on out. So this is probably the best trigger for me. Like I say, it has some disadvantages, is that you are switching between double action and single action. But if you're used to that, that's great. I mean, I like having that option. I also like having the option that if I ever had to pull it and aim it at someone, say, if I see the threat coming, I can't get away, and I need to be ready for it to get there, I can cock that hammer back, get my hands on position, and I've got that light single action pull for the first pull if I want it. So I have the option of double action or single action. Can cock it just like a revolver. The PPK is basically the same thing. You know, once you rack the slide and cock the hammer, if you pull the trigger, it fires. And you can pull the trigger again, you have second strike capability there. The only thing I don't like is the safety, but if I don't ever use the safety. To me, the safety is just a decocker on this gun. You know, you load the chamber, you decock it, you can either leave it in the safe position there, or you can just flip it back up, which you can see releases the trigger back out. I always just release the safety. I never leave the safety on this gun. That first pull, really heavy. You're not going to accidentally fire that. That way, this gun now, with the safety off, just using it as a decocker, is ready for that long double action pull. This is not the smoothest double action pull in the world. A PPK for a first pull, not the best. It's nowhere near as good as the SIG or the H&K. But you can cock it back for that first pull if you want to, and have a single action every shot after that. and you do have that double strike capability. I'm really fond of this mechanism on this gun. I'm really fond of the PPK, if you can't tell in my other videos. But this falls into the same category as the SIG. It's kind of the best of both worlds. You have single action, you have double action. It's just not as good as the SIG because it doesn't have as good a double action trigger as the SIG does. One last one I'll cover here is this double action, single action trigger, but it's got a little bit of a twist. It does not have a hammer, or not have a spur on the hammer, so you can't thumb back the hammer like you can on the SIG and the PPK. When the slide cycles, hammer stays back for a nice single action pull, and it's a light pull. You can see there, it's real close. It does have a safety, so it doesn't fall into being as good as the SIG to me because safety ruins it. I'm not a big fan of safeties. You might like safeties, that might be a pro for you. You can cock the gun back, put it on safe, it's not going to fire, safe gun. Thumb safety is easy to cock down, and then you have that nice light single action pull. I personally, the way I would carry this gun, but I would be decock it. I'm also not as big a fan as the SIG decocker. I don't like decockers that are part of the safety. I like a separate decocker like on the SIG. But I mean, this one's still nice and big and functional and works really well. So I would carry it decocked. Once it's decocked, it's in double action mode, or double action mode. And not as good a double action trigger as the SIG, I'll have to tell you. The SIG double action trigger is better in my opinion, especially the double action only trigger on the P250. But this is not a bad trigger at all. I mean, you can see how it's pretty smooth. And it also does give you that double action and single action, because once it's cocked back, I mean, you're ready to go in single action. So every time you fire a round, you're going to be firing again from single action. So that gives you a chance to get your hands on the weapon, get it in proper grip so that you're not doing that one-handed grip, and fire off some nice single action rounds. So you can empty this gun out if you wanted to pretty easily. That's one of the advantages of the double action, single action. The only thing you lose on this gun, in my opinion, is no, you can't cock the hammer like you can on the P250, which I like. The decocker is not separate, and it has a safety. So I'm not real thrilled about safeties. I like the gun that's meant to be carried decocked. The advantage of the safety, though, means you can carry this gun cocked. I mean, you can put it in cocked and carry it safely with the hammer back, pull, flip, boom. One-handed single action if you're good with a single action one-handed. So there are some different triggers in the semi-autos, what I think of them, and we'll move on now to revolvers. Okay, now I'm going to discuss revolver triggers. There's one type of trigger I'm not going to be able to discuss with you right now, and that is a single action trigger, single action only. I currently went through a phase where I got sick of single actions, traded all of them off. I intend to buy another one here soon. I think we'll buy another Ruger 44 in single action. But currently I only own two, and that's my SAS guns, and I don't have them accessible right now. Single action is pretty easy to explain, though. It's just like a double action single action, except you have to cock the trigger for every pull. There is no double action pull. It's just cock the trigger, cock the hammer, pull the trigger. Since I've got this one picked up, I will start first here with double action and single action on revolvers. Pretty easy to explain. Revolvers aren't as complicated as semi-autos, so it's pretty easy. You know, double action is cock the hammer, trigger is all the way back, very light pull to pull it. If you want it in double action, you just leave it all the way, leave the hammer down, pull it back, fire the gun. This is my Colt Python. Very nice gun, very nice trigger, very nice mechanism, very easy to shoot. Really one of the easiest revolvers to shoot I've ever shot. I think only my Performance Center Smiths really equal the trigger. But that's double action, single action. Like I say, not a whole lot to explain in revolvers. It's pretty simple. Another option for double action, or for single action, double action only revolvers is a spurred hammer. As you can see, this one has a spurred hammer. If you look at the hammer, there's no spur on it, so I can't cock it back. And in fact, it doesn't even have the mechanism that locks the hammer back anyway. If I was to grab the hammer and pull it back, it would not lock back. The mechanism inside is completely different. This just gives you the double action only trigger. The one thing about a double action only revolver is the triggers tend to be a little lighter. They're still not as light as single action semi-autos, but they're lighter, smoother. As you can see, this one's pretty smooth and easy to pull. I really like that. That's my Colt Detective Special. nice for carry. One of the advantages of not having the spur on the hammer for carrying a gun like this, the reason why you would do this and give up your single action is to not have that spur. That hooks your clothes really bad when you go to draw your weapon. It also wears out your clothes. I have shirts that have holes in them because of revolver trigger hammers, the little spur on them. This little booger right here will eat right through your clothes, believe it or not. It's also really good at poking you in the side when you're carrying it too. So that's an advantage of that trigger. Now, to take it even a little further to a double action only trigger, which gives you even another advantage, is something like this right here, the Smith & Wesson. This is a 640. It is a double action only, and it is completely encased hammer. It's almost like a striker fired because it's a completely encased hammer, but it actually does use a mechanism similar to a hammer fired. The good thing about this is you can fire this from inside a pocket. If you're firing even this one, say if it's in your pocket, you pull the trigger, piece of material gets between the hammer and you're not going to fire. You're not going off. This one, there's nothing to get in between. You know, there's nothing to get in the way of. These were popular for like bodyguard styles, and they have a bodyguard that has a shrouded hammer, which the metal of the casing goes up around it. I have one of those. I don't have it accessible to me right now. It's locked up in the safe, with the safe that I can't remember the combination to right now. Didn't want to admit that on on camera, but yeah, I have a safe right now that I can't remember the combination to save my life. So I'm trying to figure out where I put it. But like I say, it has a shrouded hammer. I've got a picture of that I can show you here. But nice gun too. That gives you the option of cocking the trigger and having the single action also, but still having that ability to fire from in a pocket. This one doesn't have that single action option. Once again, doesn't have the mechanism for it. Doesn't have the hammer. So there's some different styles of triggers for you and revolvers. I actually like the double action only triggers on these. Single action stuff great for camping when I'm not going to be carrying a gun, or not going to be concealing the gun, or we'll be carrying it open, probably in a hip holster. But when I'm carrying, I prefer spurred hammer, or spurless hammer, or encased hammer, simply because it's just easier to draw. And I like that double action trigger anyway. But you are giving up that methodical single action first shot. So if you saw like, oh, I'm pinned down somewhere, bad guy's coming, I can't get away, I want to wait till it's time to take my shot, you're not going to have that single action trigger option. But I mean, how likely is that to happen to any of us? That's pretty fanciful thinking right there. So these are more than likely going to serve my needs. So in the revolvers, probably this is probably my favorite mechanism for the double action, but I like the spurred hammer too, and it still gives me a more traditional feel, so this tends to be my revolver of choice. Plus I like Colts better than anything else, so that's why it's my revolver of choice. But there are some options for revolver triggers for you. So to sum up here, once again, I can't tell you which trigger is best for you. I've just told you which I think are best for me and the pros and cons of each one. It's up to you which trigger you prefer, which trigger works best for you. The key is going to be which one you train with the most and which one you feel the most comfortable with. I'd be really interested in hearing what your all's opinions are, like which trigger you prefer, which trigger you train with the most. Please leave comments. Let me know how you feel about which triggers, or even leave a video response if you're so inclined. I'd love to hear other people's opinions and see if they're similar to or different than mine. I know my opinions aren't always the best opinions, especially when it comes to things that I'm vaguely familiar with. I'm not the greatest expert as far as triggers go. So hit me back. Once again, thanks for watching. This is the Yankee Marshal.